Hi, everyone, and welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. My name is Peggy Ployer. I am the host of this weekly broadcast called Empowering Homeschool Conversations, as well as the founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool, which is the nonprofit organization that sponsors this weekly broadcast. So I'm just so thankful that you are joining us today. And we're excited because we've been talking this month about using technology, but in maybe a different way than you probably think about using technology in a home education setting. Kind of how to put the brakes on. We've talked about that, maybe some low tech that you may not even consider technology. We talked about that already. We talked about how to use technology to get your kids more motivated to learn, not just by putting them in front of that, but actually involving it in a conversation. That was last week's. And this week, we're going to talk about showcasing your students' work through digital means. And so my guest today is Nichelle Nelson. Thank you so much, Nichelle, for joining us. I'm super excited about this conversation and all you have to share.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. This is an ongoing conversation that we have an hour a week. And if you're popping on joining us either on Facebook or YouTube, we would love for you to join this conversation by putting your comments or questions in the feed. So you can do that from our Facebook page or from our YouTube channel. And if you're listening afterwards, just know that you can check out our broadcast schedule for upcoming broadcasts and see if there's anything you want to be involved in that conversation with. And just carve out time in your schedule so you can join us, because we would love for you to join us live and be part of this. That's why we do that. But we also appreciate you joining us after these conversations too. So yeah, I would just love to dive into this topic, Nichelle, and just kind of see where our viewers have questions as we go along. But we'd love to learn about you and your family, a little bit about the business that you run, and just your involvement in the homeschool community. That would be a great place to start.
Great. Thank you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so um, we are old-time homeschoolers. We actually started homeschooling back in 1993.
Wow.
We are a retired Air Force family. We were stationed
Mm.
overseas. Um, Homeschooling was, of course, very a new idea. Probably not to
Yeah.
some, but definitely to me, definitely.
Mm.
As African American homeschoolers, we did not have any kind of role model or
Mm.
anyone who
Mm-hmm.
had gone before us. And
Right.
so my husband, after we had our first daughter, when we were
Mm-hmm.
living in the Azores, which is
Oh,
off
wow.
the coast of Portugal, uh,
Mm-hmm.
we we knew then that just through prayer that she was not supposed to go to public school. At the
Mm.
time, we didn't know what homeschooling was,
Yeah.
and so it took we when she was about 8 months old, we moved to Germany, and that's
Mm.
where we met our first homeschool families. Um,
Yeah.
we were impressed by uh, the close knit family of
Mm.
the homeschool families that we met. We were very impressed by um, some of the young people, 11 years old, able to carry on these really intellectual conversations.
Yeah.
And so we were hooked, we were sold. And
Mm.
so homeschooling became a part of our life. We continued to add children to our homeschool, ended up on the other side of the world in Okinawa, where we had a very large
Wow.
homeschool support group.
Mm.
And as I said, it just became a part of our family. When my husband
Yeah.
retired from the Air Force, we settled in Texas and continued to homeschool here. So our children were essentially, I say that they were homeschooled from birth to Baylor. They all chose to go to Baylor so that they could all have like the same alma mater, the same,
Mm.
that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing.
Yeah, keeping
Um,
it all in the family.
exactly. Exactly. So we have three Baylor graduates. And so
Mm.
just before the pandemic began, my daughters and I started talking about um, teaching uh, teaching online.
Hmm.
It was new to us. Um,
Yeah.
my husband is very tech savvy. I am not, and so I had with the pandemic during spring that spring break where
Mm-hmm.
everything moved online. I had to learn very quickly how to
Mm.
utilize Google Classroom and things like that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was going to graduate school.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I just got my master's in education in multicultural studies. One of the
Hmm.
classes that I took was about educational technology. And
Hmm.
I remember at the very beginning of that class, I was just in tears. I was just
Hmm.
panicked because I did not think that I could learn
Hmm.
all of this stuff that she wanted us to learn. By the end of the class, I was so hooked on educational technology that
Oh,
I actually
wow.
even considered getting another master's degree in it. I was like so excited about it.
Wow.
So our business is Warp and Weft History. We
Yes. I'm going to
offer
put that website up.
homeschooled uh, history and government classes to homeschool teens.
Hmm.
My daughters know what it's like to be a homeschool teen. One
Mm-hmm.
daughter is a museum curator by trade. The other daughter is a political scientist, and
Hmm.
so and my degree is also in history. I'm actually getting ready to start another master's program uh,
Wow.
in history
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I wanted to do in the first place. The pandemic kind
Hmm.
of shifted my plans, as it did
Right.
for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is a passion of ours. This is a love of ours. And so we love being able to, in not just teach teens, but get them excited about history.
That's a great point. Yes. Yeah, that's so exciting. It's such a needed field to be teaching. And I know a lot of like online classes are much more personal and passionate when kids are younger, but it tends to be that when they get into the high school, it's like, yeah, this is required. They're just going to dump you in here. This is so thank you for just pouring your passions and your daughters too into a business that will just help that topic come alive because it's so important. We want to learn from the lessons of the past so we don't repeat them.
Exactly.
And we're
Exactly.
not good about doing that
Not at
in
all.
typical education systems.
Not at all. Yeah.
So, oh, that's awesome. And we'll repeat this website at the end too, but it's warpandwefthistory.com is Nichelle and her daughter's website. So yeah, that's exciting, to be able to just, as a homeschool mom, sharing your story. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You homeschooled in many places all around the world, and I'm sure you didn't have a whole lot of resources. And so, hopefully, parents, this gives you some hope out there. You have lots of resources and lots of communities you can dive into, even if it's just a couple people. Nichelle's a living testimony
Yes, I
that.
started homeschooling before Google.
Yes, I did too. And that's kind of scary. Yeah, there weren't a whole lot of books either
Right.
for especially with special needs. And so yes, it is possible, and we just want to encourage you in that if you're on the fence. And so yeah, what a great story. And also that you push past your fears into this technology realm, which is what we're talking about today. And I don't know if you ever foresaw yourself talking about technology and encouraging parents to use it in their homeschool ever
Ever,
before that class.
ever. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, we're going to talk about showcasing student learning. What were some of the precursors that made you start wanting to showcase your students' learning using digital means, or even just showcasing it in general?
In general. So I wanted a way, I follow, all of these other different like micro schools
Hmm.
and um in one thing that kept coming up was like project based learning, which was
Yes.
definitely a part of my homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
while we were homeschooling our children, to be able to set a goal
Mm-hmm.
and work through the steps and come to the end of that with something to show for it. I feel is
Right.
a very important life skill. Um,
Yes, because
sometimes
that's
we
what you do when you're in work. You have to produce something.
exactly, and I think sometimes we just give up too quickly.
Mm,
Also, being a homeschool family that lived overseas,
mm,
um, uh, particularly before homeschooling became more mainstream, we
yeah.
had distant family members, extended family
Mm.
members that were like, "What are you guys doing? What is this?" I mean, and how I was thinking about this when I was preparing this morning. How many we did a reason for writing?
Mm,
How many um, Bible verses with the coloring picture did we like send in the mail? I know my mom didn't keep
mm.
all of those.
Oh,
You know, so to create a digital project is something that you
mm,
don't have to clog up your refrigerator with. You don't have to send
right.
it in the mail, and it's something that you can show. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
your extended family members who are on not on board with your homeschooling. It can kind of show uh,
Mm,
them, this is what we do. You
right.
could use it as a kind of like a diary, a digital journal. You
Mm,
can
mm-hmm.
demonstrate if you wanted to demonstrate this is what we've done all school year. You could use one uh, digital product
Mm-hmm.
to showcase all of your students, all of your children, or you
Oh,
could do
yeah.
one for
Uh-huh.
each.
Mm.
And it's something that they can always look back on and
Oh,
see how far
yes.
that they've come. I've
Mm-hmm.
got for my children, I've got these boxes
Mm-hmm.
that have uh, essays that were written in the sixth grade. And,
Yeah.
now that they're college
Mm-hmm.
graduates, they come home and they flip through the box and they're like, oh, look at
Uh,
the person that I used to be. Well,
uh-huh.
in a digital format, that's something that they can always go back to.
Right. Yes, they can always have access to it with the shared folder versus, the box in your house. And it is nice to have them come home though
Yes,
and do
yes, it
that.
is. Yes, it's crazy when they come home, but it's fun.
Yes. So yeah, so that gives us some other ideas of why we would, want to maybe consider something like this. I love that you talk about, that those grandparents that maybe aren't all on board, or those family members that think you're a little crazy. Just that these are things that my children are doing. It often seems like when we start to do that, even if we have a child that struggles, and people can see what they're producing, it isn't like, yeah, we got 100% on a test. No, this was the product. You just can't almost help yourself to come behind that, what's going on, to create that, because you see the product of it and you see the accomplishment that that child has made, and usually their enthusiasm, if they're the one that is talking about it or sharing something about it too, when it's shared. um, and so yeah, I can see why this would be so important, and also self-confidence. I mean, just to know I started something and I finished it,
Absolutely.
and this was the product of my learning. And really, in traditional learning methods, we don't get a lot of that,
Right.
and
I think
so
for
yeah.
homeschool teens too, it would probably be a good idea, probably almost like a resume or a CV to be able
Mm-hmm.
to refer. Um, so
Yes.
particularly if you're doing project-based learning in a field that you are interested in. My
Mm-hmm.
son took a class. They used to have these little uh, classes for teens that were like introductory. You could learn
Oh yeah.
introductory
Mm-hmm.
guitar or archery.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the classes that he took was how to create filmmaking from your iPhone, and he had just gotten an iPhone.
Ah. Uh-huh.
And that actually became a passion for him.
Hmm.
He ended up going to college and majoring in film and digital media.
Oh,
That started
cool.
with that little class where he
Mm-hmm.
actually created a project for us. We
Hmm.
love to vacation in Disney World.
Uh-huh.
We knew he was running around taking all these photos of us, but
Right.
we just thought, okay, Trey, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he came home and he he found editing software online,
Mm-hmm.
like all the free stuff. He set it to music. He
Ah.
actually lined up the fireworks of Disney World with with music.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
he was supposed to be doing, physics homework, but okay. Um, but he presented it to us in like he changed the light bulbs in like in a very theatrical style,
Mm.
and we were just so impressed. Um,
Yeah.
but it was something that learning how to use technology
Mm-hmm.
got him started, and he's a lieutenant in the Air Force today. He is a public affairs officer, so he deals with all of that visual technology today. He got
Right.
started in his
Yeah.
early teens, yeah,
Mm.
just with an
Well,
iPhone.
yeah. Kudos for you, Mom, for letting him have freedom on vacation to do some crazy things. I know we sent our kids once on a cruise ship with a video camera and said, go make a video. And but it's those types of opportunities that we have the freedom to provide in a home education environment if we allow our children that freedom in there to just explore and to figure out what they're good at. Iconics Learning is joining us, and they said, "Love that your son took a family vacation and created a project out of it. What a terrific memory, and what a homeschooling thing to do. I mean, go on vacation and you're still learning."
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. It
because
never
we teach our
ends.
children to learn, and they just learn everywhere. So yes, that is such a quintessential homeschooling thing to do.
It also served as his I wasn't on fully on board with his degree choice, but it kind of served as like a resume for us. Like, look, this is
Hmm.
what I can do. And
Yeah.
it actually even opened up some side hustles. He has
Hmm.
produced music videos. He did the filming for our niece's wedding,
Oh yeah.
changed on the side.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All that great experience, and yes, and I'm sure showcasing it to your family, that's what made your niece say, "Oh, this is a good choice for me."
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, so yes, you can even get some side hustles from your family, sharing just your children's work.
Exactly. Look at
Who
that.
knows where it's going to go?
Right.
uh, so why is technology, this is probably just a very simple question to ask, but a perfect way to showcase homeschool learning? Because I think from our generation of, showcasing homeschool learning, we have that file box. I
Yes.
had to part with a lot of them when I moved from Minnesota to Texas because there just wasn't much room for that move. So so in general, what are the positives that we can benefit from moving to technology? Because I think some of us older homeschoolers are probably going to have to be more convinced.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, what you just mentioned, that file. I
Mm.
was actually cleaning out a closet a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, what is in here? All of these files. I have a thing, I will get rid of my children's math and
Mm.
science, but I will not get rid of their writing because I feel like their writing
Oh.
really showcases who they were at that time. And
Mm.
so I've got
Mm-hmm.
um, 4 children and 4 uh, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, all of these English
Yes,
papers.
that's just one whole closet right there.
Exactly, exactly. So moving it to digital is definitely something that saves space,
Mm-hmm.
and just uh, the ability to um, get our children on board. These are digital natives. These,
Yes, that's so
they,
true.
yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
know what they're doing. I
Yeah.
feel like we just kind of need to open the door for them,
Mm-hmm.
to monitor them safely, and then just step out of the
Yeah.
way and let them create. So,
Right. Yeah, I didn't even think about, this is something we can hand off to our children. We don't even have to, we can have oversight of it, but yes. And so Yeah, that maybe takes the weight off of some people going, oh yeah, I can just get my kids to do their own, compilations and all these things, and I just can share it.
Yes. I mean, I definitely at least twice contacted my son after he left home for college about just turning on the television. So,
Ah, yes.
um, so these are things that they know how to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like if they are given the opportunity to be creative at these things, that they will take the ball and run with it. And for
Mm-hmm.
us, it's something, I had to, during the pandemic, I was dealing with, like, empty nest and all of that.
Yeah.
Someone coined the phrase hens homeschool empty nest, which I feel
Ah,
like is a
uh-huh.
different challenge because, like, I
Mm-hmm.
was with them all the time. So
Right.
having that opportunity to just digitally go back and look at some of their things, even for
Mm.
me, is important. I mean, there's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many different possibilities. You can highlight their academic subjects, but you can
Mm.
also highlight their extracurriculars, scouting events,
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
the uh, academic competitions, all kinds
Mm-hmm.
of things that you can do. You can do like one full school year at the end of the year and
Mm.
present it.
Mm-hmm.
Homeschool graduations would be a great opportunity to
Yeah,
show
yeah.
the things that they have done through a digital format.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It moves so much. Our kids are more than just the academics that they're learning, and in homeschool settings, it seems like more so because we're going on field trips, we're doing activities and all those things. They take up way more time than the book work does. And so yes, showcasing that. I am super awful about taking videos, but I think if I would have assigned it to a child, like we went to Rome for 10 days and I gave the digital camera to my daughter because I knew she liked to take pictures. She got more pictures than I probably have ever had on any other vacation.
Yes.
Just because I gave her the camera.
Right, right. And think about when you mentioned, like, field trips. We definitely went on
Mm,
some of those nature field trips.
yeah.
You can only come home with so many rocks that you have no idea why they picked up that rock. But
Right.
being able to take a photo of it and putting a
Mm,
comment on it
mm-hmm.
to, uh, remind you of what was significant about that, then
Right.
you can get rid of the rocks then. So,
Yes. Yeah. They can go out into the backyard
yes.
instead of being in your house on a shelf and you're going again, why did we pick that thing
Yes,
up and why did we bring it up?
exactly.
It's like the shells from the beach is our problem. We go to the
Right,
Texas beach and we bring home all these shells and it's like, why did this make it home with us?
right.
Maybe we're going to make some jewelry with it. I don't even remember anymore. Now it's just got sand in the bottom of my pockets and all. Yeah,
Exactly.
in my car. Yeah, very, very good points. Um, so let's dive into a little bit of tech and talk about some tech tools that you have found helpful and that parents can explore or share with their children and teach them
Right.
how to use them.
And let them do it. Right.
Hmm.
I love Prezi, Prezi.com.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely love Prezi. I call Prezi PowerPoint on steroids
Hmm.
because it looks way more complicated than it actually is.
Really?
It
Hmm.
has a lot of like kind of subtopic features, and what it
Hmm.
does is it zooms in,
Oh,
um
I've
and
seen one
and
of
then
those.
zooms back
Yeah.
out.
Uh-huh.
I was first exposed to it when I did not have a college degree while I was homeschooling.
Hmm.
I When my youngest daughter was ready to take her dual enrollment classes at the community college, I
Mm-hmm.
enrolled with her. So
Oh,
I
that's
have
a
been
great
going to
idea.
school for the
Uh-huh.
past 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my classes, um, we had to do a presentation, and one of the young men in our classes uh, did that, and I was floored. I was
Mm.
just absolutely floored. I found out later that he had gotten so proficient at Prezi that Google had hired him to
Hmm.
create their presentations, because, like I said, it looks way more complicated than it actually is.
Huh.
And so I was able to use it with my students last year, for like at the end of the semester,
Mm-hmm.
their project. They team building, working
Mm-hmm.
together as a
Oh,
team.
yeah.
One of my classes last year did a project on the Mayan calendar, and
Hmm.
one of my students, well, it was they were twins, boy and girl twins, and the male twin, it was very artistic, and
Hmm.
so we had put together something like in class together, but over the weekend he must have been thinking about it. And so
Hmm.
when I got ready to sign into it that morning, I was floored because they had worked together to change it. Prezi comes with these templates. And
Okay.
so we had been going with the template. He
Mm-hmm.
completely changed it. He had,
Wow.
so we're talking about the Mayan calendar. He had changed it to where it was like the phases of a moon over a Mayan ziggurat. I mean, it was just,
Hmm.
but I was so pleased because he used everything that we had discussed
Mm-hmm.
in our history class. He put that into the presentation.
Oh,
And
that's
so
cool.
I was
Yeah.
just really impressed. I also had some students with special needs last year.
Mm-hmm.
I had a student who was nonverbal, and
Hmm.
being able to work with him, just through texting. He would
Yeah.
just like type in the chat box,
Mm-hmm.
helping him to put together a presentation. Another student of mine had special needs, and we were able to, and that's been a blast.
Mm.
My students are all over the country, so we're
Yeah.
not all located in one. So being able to work on a team project where one
Mm-hmm.
student is in, I actually had a student in South Africa last year.
Wow.
One was in South Africa, one was in Pennsylvania, one was here in Texas, and actually two in Texas. Being able to work in teams with students from other countries,
Mm.
that's part of my pedagogy of
Mm.
Warp and Weft, is to bring in different cultures to learn about different things. And
Yeah.
so I was so impressed. I
Mm.
cannot take credit for teaching him that. I taught
Oh,
him the history, but
right.
to be able to piece that together in this
Mm.
presentation, that was just amazing, just amazing.
And what a way to showcase, yes, I know what I learned
Yeah.
and I can integrate it into who I am.
Yes.
And isn't that what we really want out of our kids? We don't just want them to pull in the bits and to spit them out, but we really want them to learn how to integrate that into who they are and what they're good at.
Yes.
And those types of projects do push kids. I'm sure he was probably struggling, just thinking about, I don't like what this presentation looks like
Yes.
and where that struggle led to.
Yeah.
And so much good comes out of those struggles, and to give them that opportunity. That's
Yeah.
just
I will
beautiful.
never forget the look on his face, just like
Oh,
watching them, like, because they all knew and I didn't
uh-huh.
know. And I opened it
Oh.
up, and like they were like, "Do you like it? Do you like it?" It was just
Oh.
amazing, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to bring the point too. I mean, you're talking about people working, in this global economy at a high school level, and what good work skills those are in today's world where we work with people. I just had a meeting yesterday with somebody in the UK. That's the norm now, and for our students to get used to those, what time zone are you in, and how can we work this out? And
Yes.
yes, and even our cultural differences, there are different words we use for the same thing,
Hmm.
and even if we speak all English.
Right.
So um yeah, so that's great, and so many digital solutions. So Prezi's one, I definitely need to check that out. Is it an online tool, or is it something you download onto your machine? How does that work? And then there's free
There's a free
options and
version of it. Yes, it is
mhm.
online. There's a free version of it. I have mostly worked with the Prezi Present,
Okay.
but they do have a video option. They have a design option, kind of like I use Canva when
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to like make an Instagram post. You can use
Right.
Prezi for the same thing. So
Oh,
they could
okay.
either create like one static display,
Mm-hmm.
or they could create one of those videos where I haven't gotten to that yet, where you've
Mm-hmm.
got the words going.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Uh-huh.
so that's definitely one. Wix would be another.
Hmm.
Being able to create a website that
Yes. Mm-hmm.
demonstrates. You could have like a family homeschool website, and each
Mm-hmm.
student
Mm-hmm.
has their own page.
Oh, that's a
That's
great
something that you could
idea.
do. So, and
Yes.
Wix is free, or at least low cost
Mm-hmm.
to use, and you're not having to worry about like managing the server and things like that. You can easily change it.
Right. Yeah. Security. That's
Yeah.
one of the greatest hassles of having a website.
Right, right, right.
So yes, there are services like that where they take care of all the behind the scenes stuff and you just get to work on the content and that's a very nice mix when you don't want to dive heavy into all the coding and things like that,
Oh, yes.
and maintenance.
That's definitely not me. Definitely not me. Anything that has their own template, I'm good with that.
hmm Yeah, I always tell people when they start to introduce me to tech things. I have a degree in physics, and I always say I know enough to be scary, and I can probably ruin everything behind here. so so limit me, please, and tell me
Yeah,
what I can and can't do.
right, right, exactly.
Oh,
And
so
I have
yeah.
definitely learned from my students when we're all online and uh, we're all working on the project at one time, because we can I will
Oh,
assign like
yeah.
a unique uh, a unique uh, email account
Mm-hmm.
for that particular class, and that is
Oh,
also
that's a great idea.
safety.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
like at the end of that year, I can delete that, but the
Mm-hmm.
presentations are still available for
Oh,
free.
uh-huh.
I also have like a link on my website where you can go to
Hmm.
some of my students' presentations. You could find the one on the Mayan calendar
Oh,
there.
cool.
So,
Mhm.
but that's definitely for me a safety issue. Them rather than them um, logging in from separate email accounts, then
Right.
I
Yep.
will know what
Mhm.
exactly, uh, people get a hold of those things and send advertisements and things like that. I will
Right.
know this is their only way that
Mhm.
they are logging in. So,
Right. That's a really good. I mean, even if as a homeschool mom, just making those temporary emails for those types of things would
mhm.
be wise. I never even thought about something like that. So we've got Prezi and Wix. Is there anything else that you use?
Um, I mentioned Canva. Canva is definitely,
Yes.
but
Mhm.
Prezi is my primary, and of course, Google Slides, because I use Google Classroom.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And my students have done amazing things. As a matter of fact, that is our always at the beginning of every school year. That's our first assignment, is to create a Google slide presentation of who
Hmm.
you are, so we can get to
Hmm.
know you, and then that way we can get to know which students in the class have cats, which have
Oh,
dogs, which
yes.
have horses, and find those common ground so that we
Oh,
can begin to
yeah.
bond together.
Mhm.
I make one for myself too, so my
Mhm.
students know things like what I had said that I was going to do this year. One of the things that I asked them to do is to list some of their favorite books, so
Hmm.
that I could read some, because I'm, as I said, I'm old school homeschool, and so if it wasn't in the Sunlight catalog, I
Right.
probably haven't read it. So I need to know what they're reading now, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. To stay current yourself and
yes.
yeah. Yeah. So do you read a lot of graphic novels now?
Well, I mean, one of my students recently recommended a book that it's a bit racy for me, to be perfectly
Mm,
honest. I don't only teach Christian homeschoolers, so
mm,
I'm not all of my students are come from a conservative background,
mm.
and for me that's important, because I'm their teacher, so that
Yeah.
I can. I'm not. I'm not proselytizing, but I am
Mm-hmm.
demonstrating to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, you know, one of the things that we were talking about earlier um, was the emotional, the spiritual and emotional uh, 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 difficulties that we've been through over the past two
Mm.
years. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
some of the students that I have been very emotionally withdrawn. Like it's
Mm.
been a very difficult couple of years.
Yeah.
And I use history to teach them that tough times don't
Mm.
last always,
Yeah.
that this
That's so good.
civilization went through difficulty and they came through, and you can make it through
Mm-hmm.
too. And so that's my take
Yeah.
on helping them, particularly like these young people who have just
Mm-hmm.
been through so much over the past couple of years,
Right.
helping them to navigate through um, these difficult times.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Because unfortunately, the digital technical type stuff is so quick.
Yeah,
And then you're talking about history, which is so long and drawn out, and they're really good to put side by side with each other, as you just did,
yeah,
because our kids have been raised in that quick fix, that instant tech, everything right
hmm,
now, where so long term and thinking about that is just almost impossible.
right,
And so to put them in scenarios where other people have lived, and really talking about that, and how their worldview is so different than the world has ever been.
yes, 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 but helping them to find connections.
Mm,
We have discussed things like uh, how one culture moved in and became the dominant culture. Well, what happened to the people that were there before? And um,
mm,
we can see, some kind similar parallels um, when we're talking about a culture that is uh, uses the media to become more
mm,
dominant. Well, how do you get around that? How do you navigate around that without
mhm,
actually even mentioning specific things? They are
mm.
making these connections. They're
Oh
coming up,
yeah.
and I'm asking them, where do you see this kind of activity, in
Mm,
your life? And I'm also a very cultural historian, and
mm.
so we want to find out like what the Mesopotamians ate for dinner,
Oh.
that sort of thing. So
Uh-huh.
being able to find out that certain spices came when one group of people invaded another country. They brought these spices with them. So
Yes.
we're able to
Yeah.
see how all of society changes
Hmm.
just from our multicultural connections. So,
Yes. Yeah. And to value their differences. I think we don't do that enough
right.
in society. We always say, well, this is you and this is me, and therefore we're different and we can't get along. But
We have so
what
many more commonalities than we do,
Yes, yes. And so I
but
love
we
that
just need to learn to
presentation that you have your kids do, just introduce themselves to, because it is good to know that, we have these things in common, and yet we have very different lives, different, maybe you live in different places, but that doesn't mean that there isn't some point that you can come together and have that mutual understanding to start out with, because we kind of look at somebody and say, well, they just aren't like me, so therefore we're just aren't going to get along. And to teach our kids that lesson when they're young, will just open doors in their future
Yeah.
that unfortunately a lot of their peers will close, because they've been taught if they aren't just like you, then you're just, you're not going to be able to have any conversation. So
We
yeah.
talk a lot about recognizing um, within ourselves when we begin to think of another group of people or other people as the other,
Ah, yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
where those walls begin to come up, and in that way they can recognize their own walls
Mm-hmm.
and begin to
Yes.
see,
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I want to talk about one wall that probably some parents have built up, and that's about I am not tech savvy. So
yeah,
how can I? And I know we've you said a little bit about Prezi is not that difficult, but what if they've never done anything like that before. What advice do you have for them?
YouTube.
Ah, yes.
Anytime I don't know how to do something, YouTube has become my very best friend. And
Mm,
these tech companies, they know that. They recognize that
yes, they do.
many parents don't know. Well, I mean, if they're not marketing to parents, but they recognize that many people may not be that tech savvy. So you can
Mm-hmm.
find there are YouTube influencers, several different ones that will talk about how they use Prezi, and you
Oh,
can find
okay.
like just specific ones, like how do I
Hmm.
add a photo to Prezi?
Hmm.
How do I
Mm-hmm.
add a timeline to Prezi? You can
Mm-hmm.
find 3 to 5 minute YouTube videos that will show you exactly how to do it.
Oh, that's
And
great.
that's how I learned everything. I had stopped,
Mm-hmm.
I learned to knit when I was a teenager,
Hmm.
and I stopped knitting for many, many years. And when I picked it back up again, YouTube.
Yep.
YouTube reminded me how to
Mm-hmm.
do things. So definitely
Yep.
take advantage of YouTube.
Yeah, my daughter just finished hand making an authentic pirate shirt and did it by hand. But yeah, she followed YouTube videos and
Yes.
so she could do that. Yeah, my husband does more scary things like, how do you change the brakes on your car? And I was like, and you're going to drive that after you
Right.
do it, not me.
Yes. Some things, you want to trust but verify. Yes.
Yes, exactly. It's a little easier for some easy tech that you're just playing around with. So,
Yes. But
and
absolutely,
yeah.
let your teens play with it. Struggle
Mm,
is good for learning.
mm-hmm.
And so when you
Yes.
have that, we had some frustrating moments last year
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out how do I get rid of this thing that's just sticking,
Oh.
how do, or where did I go wrong? How do I go
Right.
back? That
Yeah,
struggle is a part of learning.
it
Um,
is.
I
Mm-hmm.
I was teaching a friend in it, and she's been unraveling like everything. Like she'll
Mm,
start and stop, but that's how you learn. You
it
learn
is.
once you
Right.
learn how to correct a mistake, then you
Mm-hmm.
can go forward.
Yes, and we need that perseverance too, that, we press through those things that are difficult because it's so easy to do things that are so easy and
Yes,
then think, well, I just, I don't have to struggle when I learn. But I love that you say that. Yes, the struggle is part of the learning
right.
process and we need that. And yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely. But the
Yeah.
finished product is worth all of the struggle. It's worth all the
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you've shared some great examples with us today, just about some of the things that your students have done and your children too, with theirs. Do you have any other stories to share before we wrap up?
um I also I love digital games, and we play
Mm.
JeopardyLabs.com. We play. I can create Jeopardy questions for my students.
Oh.
They absolutely love that. And I tried to do that. Well, at least last year in particular, I tried to do it like at the end of a unit. It was
Mm-hmm.
a great. I don't do testing. That is the way that I assess how they learn,
Mm.
either through
Mm-hmm.
games or through digital presentations.
Yeah, yeah. I know so many of our kids have such test anxiety.
Oh,
And so to make it in a game format or to put it into a project that they can spend more time, a lot of them just have really long processing speeds.
mhm.
And to give them that extra time, just like you said about the one student that was artistic that added to that presentation,
Yeah,
it took him a while because you said you had already finished the presentation, then he went back in and changed it.
yeah,
And if you would have just used the normal testing environment, that of course that artistic part would have not come out, but also it
absolutely.
wouldn't have pressed him
Right.
to do an even better job than he
Yes.
probably ever imagined that he could.
I think too that the digital products, I have some students that if I ask them to write something, they're going to use as few, particularly some of the boys, as
Uh-huh.
few words as they possibly can. They are not
Mm-hmm.
going to spell check it. They're not going to use capital letters when they should. But some of these same students that if you put it in a digital format like Prezi,
Mm-hmm.
and they know that others are going to be looking at it, they will far exceed, because there's a degree of perfectionism that
Mm.
comes in. Some of my students, like, they weren't done by the due date, and even though we were already like on our Christmas break, they were like, "Can we still work on this until we're done?" Who wants
Wow.
to continue working on a
Right.
project after you don't have to anymore?
Right.
And so
Mm.
that, particularly for my male students, I think that that's very important.
Yes. Well, it just shows that what added benefit that has for our students when you pull that technology in. And it's a lot of what we talked about last week too, this motivation
Hmm.
that and I think you hit the nail on the head, Nichelle, is that the environment that they're putting that content into is very professional. And so they want to meet that level in their presentation and say, yes, I can do the best with this. And how can I showcase what I really know in
Hmm.
this environment?
Right,
And it makes them go above and beyond. So,
right.
and
And
that's,
and even though I'm teaching history, they are learning other things. They're learning color coordination. They're learning.
mm,
Um, we taught, with particularly in the spring, we talk about advertisement, and especially
mm,
like in the 1950s, they're learning how to, uh, what types of elements go into advertising, and
mm,
all of those things, all of those skills come to
yeah,
play. It's not, at the end of the day, my students are not just learning history; they are learning
right.
all kinds of stuff. So,
And that's what history really is. I mean, we've segmented it into this, subject. But truly history is about living, and
yes,
it's about just how people have lived, and how do we integrate those lessons learned from the past into how we're living today.
yes,
And I think when you teach students to grasp that versus, oh yeah, that was just those people that lived a long time ago, and now we're doing our own thing, um,
right,
and really we aren't. So the
exactly.
more you do that, the more beneficial it is to them in their lives.
Oh,
So yeah.
one other thing, you could do this in connection with Wix, is a blog, a family blog.
Yes.
That's
Uh-huh.
another way, and you can actually, like, embed your, if you want to do a Prezi and a blog, you
Mm-hmm.
can embed Prezi into the blog,
Oh,
which is also
yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yes, there's so many things and another skill to learn. And how do you embed something
right.
into
YouTube.
yes, okay, go back to YouTube. Uh, well, we had a viewer that Julie says, "What a fun site! I'm going to look into Jeopardy Labs to kind of change things up." So she does
Yes.
some classes too. So that
So fun.
yeah,
So fun.
yeah. Well, Nichelle, you've shared so much great information. I hope parents just really get on board with how exciting this is and really how much we didn't even start the conversation in talking about just how much extra motivation you can have through these types of tools in showcasing your students' work, but it really elevating their work to a level that they want to share with others. And I think too, a lot of us don't think about this, but off in the future, a lot of colleges are now asking for portfolios for students instead of just those grades, the ACT, SAT. They want to see what your student has done.
Hmm.
And so this is an easy way to integrate those types of things into your normal workflow. So you do have some of those things available for them to be able to share in that level as well. So yeah, so
Absolutely.
many great ideas. So can you talk to us a little bit about Warp and Weft and how our viewers can connect with you on your website and through your classes?
Absolutely. And we accept students all year long. So
Hmm,
if you
okay.
didn't get in the very beginning, you're fine. But we offer four different levels of world history, because I
Hmm.
think it's ludicrous to try to teach world history in the history of the world in 1 year. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
Um, um,
Sound bites.
right. So being able to uh, do it in four different parts. We're using
Mm.
Susan Weiss Bauer, history of the ancient world, history of the medieval world,
Hmm.
history of the Renaissance world for his world history 1, 2, and 3. For world
Hmm.
history 4, we're utilizing the AP history textbook, which it it goes reads a little differently. I think
Hmm.
I prefer um, Susan Bauer's
Hmm.
method, but we're still enjoying it.
Yeah.
Being able to teach online gives me the opportunity to showcase digital things. We
Hmm.
do a lot of reliance on primary sources. And so we're
Hmm.
able to locate through the Library of Congress or other countries' national archives. We're able to
Yeah.
find photos and
Hmm.
original writing. Being able to help my students see that, we started out the year asking, how does a historian know what they know? Um,
Yeah, that's a
and
great question to start with.
it's yeah, it's through yes, we read secondary sources. Yes, we read what other people have said about history, but
Hmm.
you can go to the source yourself and create your own historical theories. What do
Yes.
you think about this? Yesterday, we were looking at Visigothic um, jewelry making. You
Mm. Hmm.
get into all kinds of fun stuff. And as I said, and so every week I'm looking for um, ways to make history relatable to them. That
Mm-hmm.
history is not something that I tell my students at the end of every school year, go out and make history. You are
Yes.
a historian. I call
Mm.
them that. I call them my historians. How
Mm.
are you making? Every week I ask them, how have you made history this week? So
Mm.
that they don't think of history as just some big event that happened remotely in the past, but the fact that
Right.
they are making history every
Mm-hmm.
single day. Um,
Absolutely.
and so
Mm-hmm.
we also have offer African American history, two
Mm.
levels of U.S. history. In the spring, we're going to be offering some self-paced. I have struggled with offering self-paced
Mm.
because, as I said, I love I want to get to know my students. I
Yeah.
love
Mm-hmm.
hearing about their days, hearing about their weeks. I have students that are film producers, musicians.
Mm.
One who is aspiring professional tennis player.
Mm.
Just, I want to know what they're doing. So
Yeah.
self-paced, I'll probably offer them, but I really want to get to know your students. I really
Yeah.
want to be able to talk with them and dialogue with them. So
Mm-hmm.
as a matter of fact, one of my students, I had them for I think 2 or 3 years, and they decided to finish their high school journey in public school. But I'm
Mm.
still hearing from them. I'm still,
Oh.
and I love that. I love that
Yeah.
connection. So um, making history not a subject, not
Mm-hmm.
just another subject, but as a part of life is really important to
Yeah, and you're making history. You're making an impact in their lives, and yes, it's been so thrilling to hear about, just what you're doing in your work, because you're changing lives of these students, and they are the next generation of history makers, as you said.
Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
yeah. So if you're listening on the podcast, it's warpandwefthistory.com that you can check out, is Nichelle's website to learn more about her classes and all that she is doing. So it's very exciting, and I'm pretty certain you've probably started a fire under some parents now, and to get this added to their homeschooling in some which way or form, depending on the ages of their kids.
Right.
But yes, thank you so much for sharing, and especially from a place that you never thought you would share from.
Yeah, it would the furthest thing from my mind, and especially when I think about like the anxiety that I had going into that class,
Mm-hmm.
and coming out. I mean, she spoke like her introductory video was so technical that I was like, I don't. It sounded like a foreign language to me, a
Wow.
completely foreign language, and
Hmm.
so, and I'm sure to a lot of parents, anything technical probably sounds like a foreign language, but that
Yes.
you
Yeah.
can break things down into smaller elements and learn a little bit at
Mm-hmm.
a time. I
Yeah.
always tell people while I was homeschooling our kids, I was being homeschooled. So
Yes, yes. And that's a very good point because I think a lot of people look at people who've homeschooled for a long time like us and they're like, well, I can never be like you. Well, you don't know what we looked like when we first got
exactly,
started. It was probably worse than where you're at.
right,
At least in my
right.
case it was.
Imagine what it was like when we started coming online, when we
Oh
had to
yes.
learn Google, and I remember when we were in Okinawa, it was they were homeschool forums,
Oh
and like
yes,
you
yes.
had
I
to
was on
learn
a
how to,
forum.
yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yes, I mean there's still some of those still exist, but
yeah,
very they aren't used very much. But yes, that was it. Email and that.
right, right.
So, yeah, well, awesome. Thanks so much, Nichelle. And you kind of led a great segue into our topic for next week because you talked a little bit about, using it for projects and showcasing. Well, we're going to talk about virtual reality next week. And my guest brought her full headset to the Homeschool Trade Association conference last week when I was in St. Louis and had all of these curriculum providers trying out what virtual reality is like and to use it in their teaching. And she can bring, they've created basically, you can bring your students into places of history and they can experience it. It's really cool. Yeah, so you'll want to join me here and watch next week. But that's what we're going to dive into too. And as we're realizing that there are more families that have this technology, at least the headsets, kids are playing games on them, but you can make them educational too and give your kids some experiences that maybe if you can't get out into places or they're places from long ago that need to be recreated. So it's the wave of the future, and that's something we're going to be talking about next week here on Empowering Homeschool Conversations. And so you'll definitely want to join us for that discussion. So yeah. Nichelle, keep up the good work. You're doing amazing, and I can't wait to hear and see where all of your efforts are headed, especially as you're diving into more learning yourself. I know that there's great things ahead for you and your students. So
Thank you. I can't wait to listen
yeah,
to that next episode,
yeah.
because recreating a historical place like ancient Rome or ancient Egypt, man, that would be fun.
Yeah, she had people walking through a slave ship, and it was so emotional for some of
Yeah,
them they had to take it off.
yeah,
But that's what history should do. It should
yes.
impact us and make us realize that people lived like this, and these were places that we can't be. And so yes, it
Being
can be
able to let
great.
history touch your emotions makes
Yes.
it so much more real. So
Exactly. Absolutely. So thank you all for joining us as well on this regular broadcast, Empowering Homeschool Conversations. Thank you for joining us. A few comments here and there, but we love that. I know a lot of you watch this and you are eating lunch with your kids, so um, that's great. And we're glad you're part of our community and. I want you just all to have an amazing week. And we'll see you again here next week, same time, same place, um, to join us for our conversation then. So God bless everybody, and we'll see you next time.
bye. Thank you.
Bye.
I'm Don Hawkins, inviting you to be encouraged with my weekly podcast, Encouragement for You. To subscribe, go to lifeaudio.com.